This is a chessboard, and no one's playing. There are no pieces on the chessboard, and nobody's playing chess. I'd like to explain why I think that's a good thing. So if people were playing at the beginning of the game, this row and this row would be populated with pawns. Each square on this row would have the smallest figure on the board. They're in the second row for both the color white and the color black. Then in the corner, in each corner, you'd have a rook, which is typically represented by a castle. Adjacent to the rook, you'd have a knight, which is typically represented by a horse. Next to the horse would be a bishop, which is typically represented by this kind of impersonal thing that almost looks like a trophy. Interestingly enough, next to the trophy, you'd find the queen, then you'd find the king, and on the other side of the king, you have again bishop, knight, and rook. So you have 6 different types of pieces. You have pawns, which are small like children. They are pawns. They are the most helpless pieces on the board, and they are in fact the least valued pieces on the board. They're the pieces that get sacrificed first in many games. And they're out in front, like the king and his merry people are in the back letting other people fight for them. And of course the king is barely stronger than a pawn, but the whole game is built around protecting the king. It's just a narcissist, and everybody else has to protect the narcissist. And so what we sacrifice for that are the children. The rooks represent a house or a home. The knights are often depicted as horses, as I mentioned. That's the natural world. That's Mother Earth itself. And bishops are religion, spirituality in particular. You know, bishops represent both God and spirituality, and the fact that we've introduced male intermediaries in between us and God. That's part of what has happened as we've distorted what was in the Bible, both the Old Testament and the New Testament. We've misunderstood it and created patriarchal structures that are just incorrect. And then of course the queen is the most powerful piece on the board. That is represented. That's not necessarily saying that women are better than actual men. But what it is saying is that women have the ability to, if you look at the at reproduction, fertilization and reproduction, you know, the man is involved in the inception, conception, fertilization, but the woman is fully in charge. The woman's body, I should say, is fully in charge of everything that happens between that point and the birth of the child. So the woman in effect has, the queen itself can move like both a bishop and a rook. So it's kind of divine, and it also, you know, is effectively the queen of the household. And it's much stronger than the king, who is fucking protected. The king gets put under check, and everybody's got to jump around. The game has to effectively stop until the king is safe. He's such a big fucking baby narcissist and loser. Anyway, so we've sacrificed children, home, Mother Earth, our connection to God, and women, all for the sake of that, all for the sake of patriarchy, and actually to enable men to not become more than they could be, rather than a game that would elevate men so that they would be equivalent to the queen, although different and stronger. We protect them like fucking babies, baby losers. And that's one aspect of the game of chess. One thing I do want to point out is that the knights are a little bit different than the rest of the pieces because they can jump. They're the only pieces that can fly. They're jumping horses, effectively. And like reindeer, they can sort of fly. And the reason for that is that they always move two spaces forward and one step either to the right or to the left. So they always move in the shape of an L, which is why they can fly. That's where they get their sort of superpowers. It's because of their motivation. They're moving in the shape of an L, and they're the only piece that's allowed to leap over other pieces. And if you think about the story of Santa Claus, you have a house, a reindeer, you have a bishop. If you think about the way bishops are dressed, they're awfully much like Santa Claus. You have a mother and a father, who, you know, the person who hosted the embryo and the other person that was involved in the conception, and you have a bunch of little kids. It's the story of Christmas. But nobody thinks about these things when they play chess. Instead, they make it a zero-sum game where they try to batter each other with intellectual superpower and to prove that they're smarter than the other person. And another aspect of chess is that, unlike a game like Scrabble, where you end up getting different letters every game and you have to adapt to circumstances, and it's more reflective of the way life works, chess is like, okay, everybody line up the way I want you to. It's like Adolf Hitler and his group of Nazis goose-stepping. Everybody line up the same fucking way every fucking time, and we create a square board, not a circle. So it's this rigid structure that everybody has to adhere to. We normalize everybody down to the same thing, and then we don't let any variables enter during the game. So it's a very male kind of controlling, directive mindset that's behind chess. But it's funny to see how the truth of things and the problems with patriarchy leaked into this male masculine game. And as I just explained a couple of minutes ago. Anyway, that's what I think of chess. And I'm glad this board is empty.